There's one gaping hole in the coverage of the Sherri Papini story, and that is her ex-boyfriend that she reconnected with, James Reyes, and told him that her husband was abusive. She needed to escape her marriage and sent him a care package with instructions. The instructions were rent a car, pick me up in Reading, which was like 500 plus miles from his house, take me back to your house, but arrange it so that I am in the back of your home. And if there's any windows, I need you to board those up. Okay, so far I'm like, all right, okay, fine. If you are hearing from an ex-girlfriend that you haven't heard from for like 9 years and they say they're in an abusive relationship, you know what? Hey, fine. Up until this point, maybe I could see this being understandable. But then while Sherri is there in James's home, and he claims he just was going off of what she said to do, she asked him to, because he used to play hockey, she asked him to hit a hockey puck at her body, causing all kinds of bruising. And at another point, she had him take the hockey stick and hit her in the back, called cross-checking, apparently. Hit her in the back with it, causing all kinds of bruising. He held out his hockey stick while she ran to the other side of the house and then ran at full speed into the hockey stick and broke her nose. Okay. Mind you, she's only eating like half a banana a day. She asked him to get cleaning supplies and she cleans, but I think she just rubs the chemicals on her body because she gets a huge rash. Then she asks him to go get something to brand her with and has her brand her with the word Exodus. All right. All of this is something that if a friend, like once you have reconnected with this person, you get them to your home, you see that they don't have any signs of bruising or abuse or anything, but you know what? You're not one to judge. But then they start asking you to do these things. And you should be like, no, that's not what I'm going to do. We need to go somewhere, call some people. I don't know. And then after 22 days of being there on Thanksgiving Day, Sherri says to James, all right, I need to go home. I have to be back with my kids. Can you go get some chains and zip ties for me? And he's like, all right, well, I guess I'll go do that. So then he drives her back up to Reading, drops her off at a place. She says, drop me off right here. She gets out, doesn't even say goodbye, and that's it. But for James, the next thing he would know, because he never hears from Sherri again, but the next thing he would see, because it was everywhere, was that Sherri claimed she had been abducted, tortured, starved, drugged by two Hispanic women. And has a very elaborate story that James is not at all mentioned in. The story goes everywhere. It causes all kinds of racial discrimination against Hispanic women because Sherri describes basically the most generic looking Hispanic women. And there were no Hispanic women. So he knows that this is a complete and total lie, but he doesn't say anything. Then when the detectives come, because they finally do some connecting and investigating and they connect it to James, he tells them as if it's kind of like just a friend helping a friend. Yeah, she had me hold out my hockey stick and she ran into it and broke her nose. And then she just wanted to go. So I just did that. What? And the detectives are like, I really do think he was just trying to help out a friend. No, guys, no, I'm sorry. No, we need to have eyes on James Reyes. Okay, what's he doing now? Women need to be warned about James Reyes because this should be something you couldn't even physically do to another person, especially if you think that they're escaping an abusive husband. Like at no point was he like, we should maybe talk because was your husband really abusing you or what is the plan here? But they just like drop it. The detectives are like, James is not guilty of anything. And I'm like, I guess not. But, all right. So today I'm going to be recapping The Perfect Wife. It's on Hulu. If you haven't watched it and you want to watch it, it's on Hulu. It's just 3 episodes. But they don't talk about James Reyes nearly enough. They use his audio of his statement of what happened, But the detectives really are just like, yeah, all right, that's just what friends do. So that's a big hole in this story because James Reyes, we're watching you. All right. All right, well, let's get into this, huh? So I haven't really gone looking, but what is the diagnosis for Sherri? Is this Munchausen? Because her goal was, this is all I can figure out is the reward here. The reward for this crazy plan was that she would be getting constant attention and coddling and babying. And I think that's Munchausen, right? Because she was also, we find out at the end of this docuseries that she was also doing things to keep the kids sick. That's very Munchausen by proxy. So, but what's crazy is that she was inspired by Gone Girl and Kraft, and also there was someone else. What was her name? Tara, I think. Tara Smith was a woman who was abducted while jogging right in her area. Sherri actually went to high school with Tara. So she was like, ooh, I'll take a little bit of that. I'll take a little bit of Gone Girl. And then when I get back, because she doesn't get back from this fake harrowing experience. She doesn't get back from it like a survivor. She comes back a total victim. Everything is a trigger and it's affecting everybody in her freaking life. Like she needed therapy twice a week, 2-hour sessions, and demanded Keith be there with her. She had trouble making eye contact with family members. She asked her friend if her husband would be there when they were supposed to get together. And when her friend was like, no, why? I don't feel comfortable. I don't know him very well. I can't be around new people. She didn't leave the house. Sherri would run inside with the kids if a stranger drove by. All the windows were covered in blankets. All of this was made up. She wouldn't sleep with the lights off, but not just on like a lamp like I do, or like a nightlight, but on, like overhead lights, the works. Audible screaming nightmares. The commitment. The commitment. Sheila is her sister, and she went to therapy appointments with her, and Sherri would curl up and start screaming or crying. And according to Sheila, she would work through something in therapy, but then she would find something new that would trigger her. Uh-huh. I think Keith's aunt, Pam, says that she was having a little gathering and Sherri freaked out because she was serving black beans and all she was allowed to have were black beans in a cold black beans from a can was it. And Sheila, Sherri's sister, says that she couldn't handle anything that had to do with the Hispanic culture. Now, look, that wasn't real. The Hispanic women, that whole part wasn't real. So now we're veering into some other dangerous territory. Sherri, okay? Keith says, her husband says, if there were any people with dark curly hair, any Hispanic people, that would heighten her fear to another level. Okay? Loud noises, closed doors, couldn't drive on her own, couldn't use the bathroom with the door closed. So she would go into the bathroom, Keith would go in and close it, but he couldn't lock it because if he locked it, that sound would set her off. She had to be next to Keith at all times. Her food had to be prepared by Keith or Sheila, her sister, or like someone she knew, and it had to be prepared in front of her because she was being drugged. They were drugging her food. I thought you were just getting black beans. She would just blank stare off at nothing. And her kids would be like, Mom. And she would just be staring like she wasn't even here. She would make her kids do the things that her husband couldn't. Like her husband normally did everything for her. But when he would go to work, she'd have the kids do it. Like, for example, when Keith came home one day from work, their son, who was very young at the time, was sitting right in front of Sherri and tapping her legs like side to side to calm her down. Keith was like, I tried to ask her not to do it in front of the kids, and she would get upset about that. I'm like, yeah, how else is she going to get all the attention? Then when Keith said this part, I was like, all right, is this Munchausen or is this something else? This is like a she probably has a triple diagnosis, but Keith says that Sherri wanted to gather everybody together to share stories of how they found out she was alive. And like Sherri played a video from her friends Lauren and Ryan, all emotional the day that they found her alive. And everyone was just sharing stories. And Keith is like, you could just see Sherri loving the attention. And I felt really fucking weird about it. It is officially sundress season. And you know who does great sundresses? Jenni Kayne. They would, wouldn't they? Because Jenni Kayne is a California brand through and through. They do minimalist, effortless, yet luxurious fashion. You can mix and match all of their staples. They design everything at Jenni Kayne to become a uniform. It makes getting dressed so much easier, you know? Their Riviera slip dress is the perfect summer dress for me. I just ordered it in the cheetah print because I would. But I also ordered the cropped cashmere cocoon cardigan because I'm thinking I'll wear that Riviera slip dress during the day. And then when it gets a little chilly at night, throw on my cropped cardigan. Jenni Kayne is known for their sweaters, by the way. They do super luxe yet lightweight sweaters that are perfect for spring and summer vibes. They do that relaxed knit better than anyone. The Cooper cardigan is so cute with its button accents, very flattering silhouette. It's a great layer for the cooler evenings or, you know, if you go into air conditioning. Now, let's say you're going on vacation and you need something a little luxurious to add to your vacation wardrobe. I have been loving the Flynn cashmere sweater because it's so versatile. So it's the perfect piece to pack in your suitcase. And don't forget shoes. The Eve sandal is everything you could want in a classic spring shoe. It pairs well with any seasonal outfit. Jenni Kayne believes in the art of simplicity, so they focus on comfort, quality, and timeless design. So you can curate a wardrobe that never goes out of style. They also, by the way, have a stunning collection of home essentials like furniture pieces, cozy pillows and throws, perfectly curated decor, and the most incredible candles. Plus, they have a rewards program where you can earn up to 10% back with every purchase, and joining is completely free. Find your new uniform at jennikayne.com. Our listeners get 15% off your first order when you use code SHESPEAKS at checkout. That's 15% off your first order at jennikayne.com. Promo code SHESPEAKS. Let getting dressed be one less thing to worry about. Embrace your summer aesthetic with Jenni Kayne. Now let's go back to the day Sherri went missing. Cops, obviously, why would they not, are suspecting the husband? And because I would, right? And it really starts to feel in the beginning like it is the husband. But that's because Sherri was creating different realities and different truths for different people. However, the neighbors, when the cops interviewed neighbors, the neighbors said that they would hear them fighting and yelling, and specifically him yelling at her. And one neighbor says she heard him yelling that he was going to kill her. He puts on a pretty good show, but he's an asshole. And someone else was like, he's just creepy. You get weird vibes. So obviously, we're like, oh, it's the husband. Jennifer is one of Sherri's best friends, and Sherri had told Jennifer, this is so Gone Girl. About a month before she went missing, she had said that Keith said, if you ever leave me, I am going to kill you and I will chop you up in pieces and bury you in the backyard. Very Gone Girl. Like, it's very like planting the seeds, you know, that kind of shit. Right? That was Gone Girl, right? Sherri's friend Nicole says that Sherri told her that her and Keith got in a very big fight because she had this big bruise on her face. Well, cops ask Keith about that. And I'm sorry, it's like, that's like, oh, okay, what happened? Keith says they were at their friends, Lauren and Ryan, at their house playing Wii, and he accidentally hit her in the eye. And they all were joking, like, oh, if anyone asks what happened, you can just say, oh, she didn't do the dishes or something like that. And Lauren, the friend, absolutely confirms that. So that means Sherri just flat out lied and said that Keith and her got in a fight, and that's why she had a bruise on her face. Okay. Nicole says that Sherri would portray Keith as the type of man who wanted her to be like a 50s housewife, but also work. And, if this is true, okay. It just didn't seem like that was the vibe at all. But then Nicole, her good friend, even says she had a tendency to create different realities for different people. Okay, that's her in a nutshell. So the detectives asked Keith at some point about what the neighbors were saying about hearing fighting. And Keith gets like a little uncomfortable and he's like, I don't want to talk bad about her, but she can get a little crazy and yell and push and stuff, which also makes him sound so guilty. It's like, okay, sure. I bet. But then Keith also does say he caught her texting someone, and then they ended up getting a post-nup because of it. And so from then on, legally, they had to keep their money separate. The detective has to break the news to Keith that there were more texts with that guy than he realized. And then we hear from Donovan, who was the guy, and detectives interviewed Donovan, and he said that they met at a press conference. And she said her husband was an evil man, very violent, abusive, controlling, had her locked away at the house, doesn't let her leave. Again, damsel in distress. Obviously not true at all. They were texting, though, the day before she went missing. And Keith is kind of hot, actually, when he's hearing about this, because he's like, fuck. He's like, really? Okay. Like, he's like getting really mad. I'm like, oh, okay. Get a little angry about it. Good. Well, there's a whole fucking search party going on. There's like 200 volunteers. Even her Best Buy crew is worried about her. Lots of online sleuths out there just suspecting the husband. We find out that when Sherri was at James's house, she was looking at all the coverage, watching all of them, watching Keith do interviews and cry and say he misses her and wishes she would come home. Just watching it. So the attention. Now, my other question is James watching this? Does James know this is going on? Is James just totally unaware? There's no way. There's no fucking way. We meet the McDougals, which is a dad and two sons, and they are fucking awesome. Because once this search happened or started, everybody obviously is pitching in, and these guys are friends of Keith. They call the dad, Dale McDougal, they call him Keith's mentor. I was like, in what regard? But they these dudes would just like rough some guys up. As they say, bravado can be shut down pretty quick with the right tools. And then Dale goes, any more colorful than that, I'm not sure we want to. And the detective is like, I heard about them roughing up. Well, maybe not roughing up, but being gruff with people. I'm like, you didn't care that they were roughing people up at all, did you? And like, good information. The motherfucking FBI gets involved in this. Okay? This is no joke. Thanksgiving morning, 22 days gone. A 911 call comes in. This is actually incredible because I don't know what she said to the guy initially, or maybe he saw it happen, but he's like, I have an emergency. There's a lady on the side of the road needing help. She's saying she got kicked out of her boyfriend's, and you hear Sherri go, no, that is not what I'm saying. Very specifically saying there are Hispanic women. But she's actually not. She's just like crying a lot. The 911 operator's like, can you put her on? And she's just crying. It's almost like she didn't think about it. Because they're like, who did this to you? She's like, I don't know. I never saw her face. Tell her to call my husband. She took me. It's like, okay, where are we going here? So then she's in the hospital with all of the injuries that James Reyes inflicted on her. She looks crazy injured. Like, whoa, dude, and so Keith describes what it was like when he first saw her. He says, look, I went down the hall and I pull back the curtain and he gets kind of choked up because it's so heavy. My God. He goes, I look at her and the way she looked at me in that moment, I felt like she was lying. But then you look at her injuries and you're like, I mean, who would do this? the cry, like all you get is the audio of them like seeing Sherri in the hospital right away. And she's crying in that way where you're like, oh, this is so embarrassing. This is so fake. I no wonder he was like, this doesn't feel right. But literally, she's branded with Exodus. There's scabs, bruises, a hole in her arm, the ribs are showing. So you're like, I mean, I guess I gotta believe it. Because Sherri goes, don't you worry. I made sure that you guys would believe me by injuring myself, well, or having someone else injure me. So okay. Everything then she says to Keith, to the detective, everything is completely made up. So she's like, because she had to come up with a solution, a way to like not really want to talk to cops. So she goes, they would show me articles about you guys saying I'd left voluntarily and that no one was going to believe me. And so I don't want to, I can't even talk to police. I don't trust them. I don't trust them. And Keith is like, can you just talk to them, please? What the fuck? But I just want Keith. I just want my husband. I just want him next to me. So that's where I'm like, okay, there's the reward is getting all of this attention and like demanding it and having an excuse to demand it. But then the detectives get her story. They go to their house and they sit down with them because she had to have Keith there. I will not be questioned without my husband. He has to be next to me. He makes me feel safe. Okay. So this is what she says. This is the statement she's giving. Now, again, all of us true crime heads are like, this doesn't sound like someone who's recounting the trauma that they need, the information they need. She knows what they fucking need. So this is what she got. She goes, so I took the kids to school that day, nothing unusual. It wasn't even a hard goodbye. You know, sometimes they're like, no, don't leave me. But it wasn't even like a hard goodbye. Nothing. Yeah. Text my husband to come home for lunch. Oh my God, I'm so embarrassed because I was like, hey, honey, please come home and have sex with your wife. I'm so embarrassed. And I'm like, wait a minute. Are you now like that right there? I think these detectives know right away because like this isn't. If you're talking about the most traumatizing experience in your life, you're not adding in these silly details and acting like fake embarrassed because you're really what it feels like you're trying to make them embarrassed, you know? She goes, I want to say it's like the 5K runner app. There's a song I listen to every time I run, which is their wedding song. It's a Michael Bublé song, everything. And she listens to that on repeat the whole time, the whole time, which is crazy. But the detective is the one that keeps having to like move this along because she just will get stuck on these totally irrelevant details. It's like she's stalling. It's like she hadn't been rehearsing this the whole time, you know? He's like, so you almost got to the mailboxes? And then she goes, correct. And it takes this, I don't know. There's just certain things that are very difficult to explain. And then she starts to cry and she goes, the window goes down, but it was a woman. Nothing. And then the detective's like, are you having a hard time recalling? And so she's like, no, I got to really play this up some more acting. It's frustrating because I know she was wearing a hat, but I can't see the color and what they were wearing. And the detective's like, all right, how the hell am I going to fake that? He's talking to her like a kid. He's like, okay, let's pretend. Sometimes you can't remember things that you experience. But maybe if you imagine if a bluebird was sitting on a tree watching this, what's the bluebird see? And she goes, running to the mailboxes. The vehicle stopped, backed up, and then stopped again, obviously. And then I cut diagonally. I don't even remember the door opening. Maybe they said hey or something to get my attention. The detective goes, was the car on Sunrise now or on Oregon Trail? And Sherri goes, no, it's on, and then blows her nose, clearly stalling, trying to figure out what the right answer is. Yeah, no, it's on Old Oregon Trail. This makes no sense. I walked towards where the vehicle had backed up. Why'd you walk towards it, by the way? If you see a suspicious vehicle, like backing up, whatever, it's like, okay. I had my phone in my right hand and my earbuds on, and I took out my left to hear. And then she opened the door And then I saw the small revolver and I immediately ducked down, crouched down. What? During this interview, by the way, this is just a fun little factoid because I actually did watch Crime Watch Daily a lot. And Chris Hansen is knocking on their door, one with the cameras rolling. And I saw this episode. I totally saw this episode of Crime Watch Daily. But then Keith starts recording from inside the house. So it was like really weird to get that perspective. They had a ton of media attention, obviously, paparazzi all the time. But back to Sherri's bullshit. She goes, they said something like, we don't want to something. We don't want to something. I don't remember. Then I put my phone down. And as soon as I put it down, I was so mad because I couldn't call my husband. And as soon as I put it down, I then turned and I pulled my hair out because I didn't run away and I should have. I can't remember lifting my leg and I can't remember the back door open. What the fuck are you talking about? You crouched down last you said something, but now you put your phone down and pulled your hair out and turned. Girl, this is so poorly thought through. I really thought you were going to think this through like a script, but that doesn't even make sense. These detectives are literally like, okay, girl. They try to go through the rest of the story, but you can hear in their voice that they're like, that doesn't sound right. So this goes on for a while. Just Sherri lying with all the triggers, all the PTSD and all the shit. But Keith starts to be suspicious and he ends up saying to their therapist that he doesn't always believe what Sherri's saying. And the therapist is like, well, I mean, her story's never changed. Like, do you really think she's the kind of person who would fake all of those injuries? And Keith's like, I shamefully had to say, yeah. Because there is a story about Sherri's back. Prior to their marriage, she has 2 scars in the center of her back, almost as if she had wings. And Sherri told him that they were from an ex-boyfriend, James, the same James that is her accomplice in all this. She said to her husband that James took 2 knives and stabbed her in the back. Whoa. Like, that's like a murder, like that. Someone doesn't just go like, and then they're done. Like that's like them killing you. But then she didn't remember that she had told her friend Jennifer the story. But Jennifer got, though, that her father was holding her down and cut her with an X-Acto knife. But then later, when they lived together, like later in life, Sherri actually admitted that she had done it to herself. So Keith had heard that story about how Sherri had done it to herself. But then Sherri's telling him, oh, James did it. But like Keith was like, I didn't know about self-harm stuff. So like, I just didn't want to push it. But when she got back, he would question her on things and she would just say, oh, I'm sorry, that was your first wife. Which was like Sherri saying that's a different person. Whoever would have lied about that was a different person. After what I've been through, I'm changed completely, and I'm not capable of lying anymore. Hello, She's Speaking with Emily Hanks listeners. Today's episode is proudly brought to you by Lola V, an award-winning hair care line by the fabulous Jennifer Aniston. That's right. Jen got tired of the damage and the struggle of having to choose between hair products that work and ones that are actually good for us. So Lola V is created with the finest natural clinical ingredients and ensures your hair feels as luxurious and carefree as a summer breeze. You can say goodbye to sun damage, tangled hair, and hello to shine, strength, and elegance. Think of Lola V as your personal hair spa. It offers not just summer-proof hair care, but an aroma-infused escape from the heat. The signature scent, by the way, it's giving zesty citrus, calming rose petals, vibrant lemongrass, cooling green tea, earthy woods, maybe a little hint of subtle musk. Picture yourself beginning your day wrapped in this invigorating aroma, turning your daily hair care routine into a little slice of summertime paradise. Harness the power of summer shine with the glossing detangler. I use this every single time I shower. I would not dream of not using it. It detangles, it primes, it enhances shine, it improves manageability, that's the biggest part, and protects your hair from damage. So you gotta get it. It's a must. Check out all of Lola V's products at your local Ulta Beauty location to experience the luxurious scent for yourself. Or you can head directly to their website at lolav.com. As our loyal listeners, you'll get an exclusive 15% off your entire order when you use code SheSpeaks15 at checkout. That's 15% off your order at LOLAVIE.com with promo code SheSpeaks15. Please note you can only use one promo code per order, and discounts cannot be combined. After you purchase, they'll ask where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Your hair will thank you. If you are looking for your next favorite non-alcoholic beverage, look no further than Hop Water. Hop Water is a non-alcoholic sparkling hop water, obviously, that blends hops with adaptogens and nootropics. So these ingredients are known to have mood-boosting benefits, but people say that, but until you try it, and I don't know if it's just in my head, but I really feel happier, less stressed, I guess. So, hey, adaptogens, nootropics. Hop water is crafted without alcohol, without calories, without carbs, without gluten, without sugar, and all the flavors are delicious, like the mango, the lime, but my favorite is the ruby red grapefruit. Cannot get enough of that one. I took some hop water to a Memorial Day party, and I've got a bunch of people hooked. Right now, Hop Water is giving my listeners a special offer. Order through my exclusive URL, hopwtr.com/shespeaks. Get 20% off your first purchase, plus access to special flavors that are only available online. And free shipping when you order 24 cans or more. Don't wait. Order now at hopwtr.com/shespeaks for 20% off. hopwtr.com/shespeaks. Now, about that lie that the two Hispanic women abducted her, all right? Turns out, in high school, Sherri posted on a white supremacist blog or website. It was under her maiden name, Graf. And there's a picture of her next to the article. And she wrote this story about getting in a fight with Latina girls and her father with being really proud that she beat them up, and something about how she's proud of her race and proud of being white. The detectives ask Sherri about it, and she's like, I didn't write it. And they're like, any idea how it got posted under your name? And she's like, I have no idea. No idea. But then that's also weird because Keith came across it back in 2007. They had met in 2006. He comes across it in 2007. And Sherri claimed that it was a mean joke someone was playing on her and that it's not her. And there were so many events that didn't track. Like, for example, and it says that her parents owned a pizza place and that's not her. And there's no medical records of any of this fight happening. No one went to the hospital or anything like that. Sherri's friend Jennifer was like, honestly, I didn't think it was real because she dated Hispanic men. I mean, James Reyes, that's got to be, hello. So she's like, I don't believe this blog. But Sherri claimed to Keith back in 2007 that she was going to get a lawyer to get it removed. And so that's interesting because the detectives have just caught her in a lie because at first she's like, I don't know anything. I don't know how it happened. But she had told Keith that she knew it was some people playing a mean joke on her. And so Keith tells them, well, yeah, I thought she was going to get that lawyer. So the detectives say, okay, who was the lawyer? And she goes, I don't remember, but if you were to give me a list of lawyers, I could pick out the name because it was ethnic. So what are we doing here, Sherri? What are we doing here? Because There were no Hispanic women, first of all, but you made that up and you allowed there to be all of this huge rise in racial discrimination, hate crimes against the Hispanic community in your area because everyone was really freaked out. And people were submitting because like other crimes were happening and like they would see mugshots and they'd be like, are these the people that did that to Sherri? When there were no people who did that to Sherri, except for James. Well, so you've got to be a little racist too. So in August of 2020, this is 3 years and 8 months after she initially reappeared. The detectives finally call Keith and Sherri to be like, hey, we got some new info we got you to check out. And this is the FBI now. There's an FBI agent named Peter that's gotten involved. And what had happened, they got a hit on DNA that they found on her clothes. So Peter, the FBI agent, and the detective interview a suspect in Costa Mesa, which is 595 miles away from Redding, and that is James Reyes. It's also a little funny because when they get down there, James's bird gets out. So one of the detectives, Detective Wallace, goes with James to like get the bird while Peter, the FBI agent, goes and looks through the house. So when they get the bird and they go back in, Peter looks at Detective Wallace and says, this is the house. It matches every description Sherri gave, specifically about a closet. The closet was so customized that it just wouldn't be a coincidence. It's definitely the same place. Like it's a for sure thing. So they show Sherri these pictures. They're like, we found, like it was such a... They didn't need to do it like this. I know they were trying to get her to maybe confess, but they didn't need to go, look, we found the house. We think this is it. We want you to look at it. Because they were just watching her squirm. She's looking at it and she's like, it's very close, isn't it? And the husband's like, fuck yeah, we found the place. Oh my God. We can like stop living in fear and you can stop having all these fucking triggers. And oh my God. But she's like, it's close, but it's different. It's different. And they know, they just keep showing more and more pictures and more evidence. And Sherri is like shutting down and freaking out. And then the detectives are like, well, we spoke with the owner of this house and his family. So do you want Keith to leave so we can talk privately, or what do you want to do? Now, mind you, she's always wanted Keith around. Always wanted Keith next to her. For the first time in this entire experience, she looks at Keith and says, did you want to stay? And he's like, yeah. And she's like, okay, yeah, no, he can stay. But the detectives actually just leave Keith and Sherri alone in the room, obviously watching them on the camera. And he's like, why are you, like, what's the problem? And she's like, I don't want them to find her because she saved my life. I don't want to go down that road. She's the reason I can hold my children every day. But he's like, I need you to explain why. Why? Why would we not do this? Like, you need to, I'm getting freaked out now. Well, the detectives come back in as soon as they hear her talking about like she saved my life, her, whatever. They come back in and they're like, all right, here's the deal. That DNA matched James Reyes. And Sherri's like, no, it can't be James. And they're like, why can't it be James? She's like, because he loves me. He loves me. Keith actually asks, because Keith is sitting in there and she's clearly lying. It's all clearly being lied to. Poor Keith. Even Detective Wallace, who kind of sucks, by the way, but even he's like, as a friend, I should have probably warned Keith, but I needed to get real-time reactions. And also, who knows, maybe Keith was involved in it. They didn't think so, but like, I get it. But so now Keith, who kind of thought they were all a team, is like, wait a minute. Who's telling the truth? So Keith's like, can I talk to one of you? So they talk outside I think he talks to Peter, the FBI guy. And that man, Peter, goes to him, you got to be really careful because she might try to harm herself. So now Keith has this like responsibility of what? Keeping her alive? Like, what are you talking about? And then the detectives try to get Sherri to admit, but she sticks with her story and they just go, all right, you can go. So they don't arrest her. And they didn't release it to the media like they said they were going to do. So every single day, Keith, who wanted nothing to do with her, rightfully, Sherri would be messaging him like, there's no proof. This is what I'm trying to tell you. That's why they're not announcing it. This is all just circumstantial and whatever. And so little by little, Keith is like, oh, I mean, they're not announcing it and they're not. But actually, speaking of James, on day one, apparently, Keith claims that, and there's proof of it. They had listed all the suspects that they could think of. And James was on that list. And Sherri's father actually even confirmed with detectives, like he was an abusive guy, like he should be a person of interest. And the McDougals, remember the McDougals, the cool guys? They said that they went to James's house and were like camped out in front. Folks were positioned there for 2 to 3 days, they said. And then all Dale will say is that we were guided, that wasn't the resource we should put our effort on. And he goes, I won't say where we got that guidance from, but I'm like, was it the detective? Was it Detective Wallace? But like, wait a minute. So Sherri was in the house, in the back of the house when you guys were parked outside and you didn't know? Crazy. Well, she knew what to do. She knew to board up the house. And fucking Detective Wallace is like, I think his name was just missed for whatever reason. Okay. Even though okay, I'm telling you. But okay, so all this, it's like over a year, 18 months or something from when they initially sat them down and were showing all the evidence. And at this point, Keith has started to believe Sherri because he's like, look, I mean, I guess if he really did kidnap her, he wouldn't tell the truth about it. But also, like, where are the Hispanic women? Were there any Hispanic women? None. But Keith's like, if it turns out that this really did happen to her and I left her, like, I don't know if I can live with myself. So they are living together essentially. But it's just very tense. The FBI's looking through things. They find a Pinterest board that Sherri had put together of different branding equipment. Like a Pinterest board, my word. And then Keith's like, yeah, one day I was working on something in the backyard that she wanted me to do. And all she did was gently move a wheelbarrow that had nothing in it, like a foot over. And then she was like acting like she was out of breath and like really putting on a show and saying like, oh, could you just do that for me? And he's like, basically what she wanted me to do was do what she wanted me to do, but like not help me at all because she wanted to pretend she was too tired or something. And Sherri had said something like, I'm just under a lot of stuff. I need an outlet because you don't understand the 22 days. And Keith, for the first time, was like, it's a horrible thing that you went through, but can we go a fucking day without hearing about it? And without missing a beat, she goes, I have to live with the fact that you never found me. Okay. Oh, all right. Okay. So actually, it was 19 months after the initial FBI confrontation. They arrest her. They tried to not do it in front of her kids, but her kids followed her out. They tried to lure her out by herself, but the kids followed her out. They're arresting her, and she throws her son the phone and says, call your father. Now, mind you, now she's arrested. She had received over $30,000 in like victim fund. I don't know, probably crowdfunding too. I don't know. But it's like a victim fund, and she took from it. So she was charged with mail fraud and lying to officers. So she's released, I think, like 5 days after she's initially arrested. And when Keith sees her, I think she's staying at her sister's, she runs over to him, jumps on him, pulls him into the room, and takes off all of her clothes and is trying to get his clothes off, trying to have sex with him. He's like, ma'am, no. But then eventually, like, she stops doing that and says that she's going to take a plea deal. And because it's only 6 months with an ankle bracelet and I already never leave the house anyway and whatever. But he's, of course, like, so wait, you are guilty? Like, what the fuck? Finally, Keith hears from Sherri's lawyer that they got her to finally admit that James picked her up and that she had a burner phone and watched all of you searching for her. She gets 18 months. She's sentenced to 18 months. While Sherri was in prison, Keith was getting up from the bed he was with the kids, and he was getting up from the bed, and he kind of made like oh, excuse me, I got to get up. And Violet, their daughter, goes, Daddy, are you sick? Why don't you do mommy's trick? Mommy's trick is to breathe in rubbing alcohol. And sure enough, Violet knows exactly where the rubbing alcohol is and soaks this tissue in it. And it turns out when the kids would get sick, they did this every single day. Sherri would tie a string around this bag that had the soaked tissue in it, and they would smell it all day, and it would get them sicker. And so she would take them to the doctor, which is so Munchausen by proxy, right? That's what that is. Well, Sherri gets released early. She's released after 10 months, which is what would happen, right? That's what's going to happen. She released a statement saying, like, I'm ashamed of my actions. I'm going to work on not doing that again. But the question is, like, why is Sherri like this? What happened? Well, Sheila's sister does say that they had an abusive upbringing. Their mom and dad, there was a lot of alcohol and drug abuse. And a friend tells a story of watching the mom like drag Sherri into the room and take her belt off. And so there was abuse for sure. She left home at 16. She dropped out of high school at 16, moved to LA. Now I'm assuming they were in California. So she moves to LA and doesn't even have anywhere to go, really. And is like couch hopping. And I think that's when she dates that James Reyes guy the first time. Then she goes up to San Francisco and she lives on her own until her 20s, like kind of just surfing around from 16 to her 20s. I'm sure she told a lot of stories. I'm sure she got used to creating a whole different reality for herself. She was trying to escape hers, so she would make up lies. And I don't know what the proper diagnosis is. All I can come up with is Munchausen, but I definitely think that living a life of couch hopping and being homeless basically is probably what started a lot of the stories that she would tell. Although she was telling them in high school, the story about getting in a fight with Latina girls and stuff most likely was written by Sherri. And that had a bunch of fake facts in there too. So it's vexing to me. Keith says on their first date, she told him that she was married. But she's like, but I don't really know the guy. He's in the military and both of us financially benefit from it. But we're getting divorced. And so he was like, all right, cool. So she's got a history of lying. She's nowhere to be found. I did go looking for her and she's nowhere to be found. I did see Keith say that the kids do talk to Sherri. He does not, but the kids do. I think they talk to her like once a week or something, or the visitation's about to go up to once a week, maybe supervised visitations. They better be fucking supervised because Sherri would take those kids. The kids are obviously older now than they were, but still, I'm a little new. But just, I mean, like the commitment. Like I've done stuff for attention for sure. You know, I've gone to like work one day and really needed to play up my symptoms so I could go home. But this is like, she was living in a fake PTSD infused world. Oh, I forgot to talk about the therapist suggested she write a book. So she wrote a book called 22, and it was a fictional book of her experience. The branding, the burn. My first burn is one of the chapters, I think. So, and she had timed it too because the way everything was healing on her body, it was healing as in like this was a continuous torture situation. It's not like it all happened one day and it's all healing at the same time. It's like this bruise is a little bit lighter and this bruise is fresher and whatever. So she just really planned out all of that commitment. But James Reyes, sir, I would like to know where he lives at all times. I don't know. They just really dropped that ball. Like, okay, cool. You did all of those things to help your friend. Like, James knew she was there and was watching footage of her husband crying, wanting to know where she was. They just dropped. They're like, okay, thank you for your information. Like, I get that Sherri has issues, okay? And I feel so bad for this husband. Keith is like, oh, the poor thing. But James, guys. All right. Well, that wraps that up. It's been weird. There's just not any Bravo content that I really want to cover. I guess I could talk about Jersey on Sunday's wrap up. Because that fight, like, I know it's kind of a hot topic, but still, I also see it's like a hot topic, but I also see people being like, I can't even do it. I am catching up finally on Love Island US. Enough of you requested that I go back and give it another try. So I am watching it, and I will probably end up covering it because honestly, there's just nothing to really cover right now. But I'm trying to do what I can to give you guys some content. So keep an eye out for more mother-daughter experiment recaps. Keep an eye out for Love Island. And see you Sunday for those who want to join me for the live. And I love you. Mean it. I'll see you next time. Bye. Thanks for tuning in to She's Speaking with Emily Hanks. This show is produced, hosted, and edited by me, Emily, and brought to you in partnership with Cloud 10 Media. If you are looking for bonus content, check out the Patreon. The link is in the description. To show some support, you can hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. Another free way to support the pod, please rate and/or review on whatever platform you listen. It's free, and it helps the algorithm or something. You could also head to buymeacoffee.com/shespeaks and buy me a coffee or two. Make sure you're following me on all social medias. I am She's Speaking with Emily Hanks across all platforms: Threads, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. That's it. Thank you guys. See you soon.